for another ICS Defense Force episode. My name is Dean Parsons, Certified SANS Instructor for ICS 515 and 418. As usual with any ICS Defense Force episode, anything we discuss and talk about is applicable to the control system sectors and critical infrastructure sectors that you see here. So continuing our conversation today about control system incident response, we're going to dive into the lessons learned phase. But first, before I forget, any questions and comments you have, please put those in the comments section, and any questions that are there, we will address those very quickly after the event. So what have you applied from your ICS incident response lessons learned, and the phase specifically on applying and getting better for control system incident response? Now, at this point here, we have completed a number of different aspects of the incident response cycle. So we've done the planning phase, we've done the detection, and we have identified a threat in the environment. We've completed the evidence acquisition, performed timely analysis, executed containment by fighting through the attack in the ICS. We've also finalized the eradication. So we have recovered the engineering process at this phase. However, we're not done with incident response, which of course is the next piece of lessons learned, critical part of the cycle which continues. So what did we learn from the actual incident we may have experienced? What can be applied to reduce the impacts in the future moving forward, reduce the mean time to recovery, and also what can be applied from that event to defend against similar types of attacks in the future? The whole objective for ICS incident response lessons learned, or applying the engineering knowledge, the visibility knowledge, the ICS specific security knowledge to improve the ICS incident response and the restoration efforts for the engineering processes moving forward. Of course, we're applying the documented findings from the cyber events or even exercises of the ICS incident response plan. Well, if you recall from the very first phase here, the very first step of the prep, we've gone through the ICS incident response plan, and we've had the communication completed for the roles and responsibilities for those that are going to be executing that plan. Through that, we've actually assigned somebody in the team as the person that's going to be recording the incident response information, the findings, the analysis, the actions taken by the ICS incident response defenders, engineering folks, and so on. Through that recording, you're going to be identifying the gaps throughout the entire incident response process, which leads us to the critical part of lessons learned. Once these documented findings are in place, we can then analyze them and apply those in moving forward to make improvements. And we can make those improvements through the process of people, process, and technology, this cycle that we have here. From a people perspective, during the incident, did we have enough resources will come to mind. Also, the folks doing the data acquisition and the analysis, were they trained to understand the ICS specific types of threats that we're seeing out there? And did they have ICS specific incident response techniques to apply to the actual role? The process itself, those ICS roles that have been assigned, do we have the right teams involved? Did we have anybody left out during the incident response? Did we, of course, include the engineering staff or anybody doing the data acquisition? What about the safety team as a result of any incidents on site as well? Now, from a technology perspective, things like tuning will come up, things like the visibility, logging aspect, or even network control system visibility as well as a technology element which we can improve moving forward. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the common gaps we have found in control systems across many sectors. So there's nothing specific here to one sector, but generally this can apply to many of the sectors that are out there. So let's walk down through some of these key findings and make sure that you have these covered in your incident response plan. Some of the things we do find is that there's a lack of general logging. Now, specifically in the ICS, the logging we're talking about here, of course, applies to engineering workstations, HMIs, all the critical assets we've been talking about through these episodes. But the lack of logging really comes by either not having enabled the logging to begin with, or not having the features to be enabled natively. So the field engineering devices may have a lack of logging. So be aware during incident response, you may need to call on information from those devices in the field. Beyond that, of course, is usually the lack of network-specific visibility that we've seen in control system incidents, where there's no or not as much as expected the control system or network system visibility. Therefore, we don't have visibility of the control system traffic at lower levels of the control environment. Another specific thing there is having the visibility specifically to at least level 1, level 2, level 3. All of the major components in the ICS communicating all that traffic should be included in your network security visibility for ICS. Beyond that, of course, is the resources in the community. Do we have enough resources in your particular case doing incident response for your ICS facilities? Now, another thing that comes to mind here is maybe we don't at this current stage, maybe you're building a team out, and this is an opportunity to maybe consider an incident response retainer from an ICS specific vendor that meets your needs. The next step is, of course, the attack vector. How did the adversary get into the control system environment? How are they able to make the impact that they have, that we've seen through incident response? Is it a identified vector we knew about already, a common one that might be out there, or is it a new TTP that we can apply to reduce the habitable nature in the environment for the adversary? So these are the main things we have seen gaps during incident response, and specifically the lessons learned aspects of the lack of visibility, logging, resources possibly in your network and in your team, of course, and also finding that attack vector is going to be critical to reduce that vector being used in the future. Now, some of the main takeaways for this episode are as follows. Things like, do you have your ICS data acquisition tools pre-positioned in your environment? It was critical when we talked about that earlier on, but it's critical again now to bring it up as well. What about the roles of recording the findings and the analysis, even maintaining the chain of custody in your control environment? Has that role been assigned in your team? And of course, last but not least, any actions from incident response lessons learned can be managed as a project with things like deadlines, scheduled timelines around those things, and assign specific actions to individuals. Make sure that the critical things we've logged throughout the incident response process is, of course, applied moving forward. So critical to treat it as a project to make sure things get done and applied and is applicable for the next time you have to execute your incident response plan. So another question, another reminder, any questions that you do have on this episode, please put those in the comments section. Definitely looking forward to getting your thoughts and feedback on this. And of course, join us again for the next episode, which is going to be on the last piece of ICS incident response. And that's going to be, of course, on information sharing. So any questions, please drop those in there. And absolutely, thank you again for connecting with us. And we will talk to you again soon.